Ah, Goon Lagoon. It feels like I was just here yesterday, and I'm sure this won't be my last visit either. Objectively speaking, I think I can give Girls Frontline 2 Exilium a full score when it comes to quality, and the global launch arguably brought it back from the brink of death when it performed poorly on the Chinese servers. The first time I reviewed Exilium, I gave the game a good week of playtime, then realized it just wasn't for me. However, earlier this year, something changed. I reviewed the first GFL game, and while you can watch my video on it, the long story short is that it's got some really unique ideas, but it's dragged down by certain outdated design choices that no longer hold up due to its aging lifespan. I came back to GFL 2 because I really wanted to see how they would handle a game in the same universe with modern standards and gameplay. I particularly praised the quality of story in the first GFL game, and during my review of it, I specifically said, "And I feel there's such a difference in tone between this and Exilium that they almost feel like completely different entities. If Exilium is able to achieve the same level of writing, then I will be sure to return to it." So, does it live up to the writing quality of the first game?
No.
Coming from someone now having experienced the first game, I feel like GFL 2 has been an upgrade in many ways, but despite the jankiness of its predecessor, Exilium just never really captured the magic that I was looking for, even after having completed the whole base storyline so far. My name is Psyche, and welcome to this follow-up review of Exilium. Now that we're half a year into the global server's launch, I want to go over my thoughts as a returning player and why its mechanics makes it one of the best gachas you can play on the market. As a sequel, however, it's a little middling. What I think everyone will agree on is that GFL 2 has some amazing graphics, so realistic that the technology to render the stocking textures has been patented. Alongside the stellar animation quality, the game almost feels wasted when displayed on a small phone screen. I gotta appreciate those graphics in higher detail, if you know what I mean. Using the REDMAGIC Astro tablet, I can do just that. So let me tell you all about it in this brief message from the sponsor of this video, REDMAGIC. The REDMAGIC Astro tablet is arguably the best performing gaming tablet out on the market right now. Featuring the flagship processor Snapdragon 8 Elite, liquid metal cooling, a 165Hz refresh rate, and an 8200 mAh battery, this device is able to run all the games I installed on it on the highest settings for hours on end. With a sleek back design, there is a cooling fan that assists with dissipating heat while also operating without an external vent. You can even customize the color and flow of the RGB lights on the back. There is a button to toggle the dedicated game space where you can add games to it and have it be optimized for a better experience. Using the Game tab, you can access a variety of features that are normally not present on most other mobile devices. The feature I found most interesting was the motion gestures. Given that the dimensions of a tablet can't really accommodate shoulder triggers, you can set it so that a specific motion, such as flicking the tablet upwards or downwards, will trigger a button prompt. This can be handy in certain games where you want a little flexibility with your finger placements, such as activating the ultimate ability of your character. Plus, the size of the tablet not being too big and fitting in the palm of my hand makes it easier to carry around. For more information on the Astro tablet, be sure to use the link in the description or pinned comment to learn more. Once again, thank you to REDMAGIC for sponsoring the video, and let's get back to the review. If you haven't watched my overcomplicated gacha review on the first game, I highly recommend it so you have some context. While I had many gripes with just how unforgiving its gameplay systems worked, such as basic quality of life features missing by modern standards, there was one aspect of it that I was completely sold by. To put it plainly, the story of the first GFL game is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Granted, it still suffers from what I call early gacha story syndrome, where the plot only picks up when you're decently into the chapters. But when you get over that hurdle, I'm not exaggerating, as someone that has read some of the best visual novels to exist, I will put GFL's writing not just one of the best in gacha gaming, but one of the best in visual novels overall. The amount of understanding of certain historical events and how it puts its own unique spin on how the GFL universe diverged from our timeline. How the geopolitical themes of factions vying for power and dominance are handled with such precision and maturity. How the overall storyline flows extremely well and builds on what was present in the previous chapter, instead of feeling like separate plots. My favorite part? You play as a private military contractor that's tasked with specific missions in shaping the bigger picture. You're not a superhuman capable of changing the world at a large scale. You're just a small fry caught in the middle of everything. Each new chapter feels like a faithful continuation of the last, with the overall story building up towards an ultimate climax. The most surprising aspect about the first game's story is that characters actually develop. They change. If it's a plot-relevant NPC, they might even get killed off. At the end of it all, you never solve the problem. The bad guys get away. You just delay the inevitable. Once in a blue moon, back when I still read visual novels, there were times when I get up and realize that I've been sitting at my desk reading the story for 5 hours straight. There's very few gacha stories that have gotten me to this point, but GFL is one of those cases. The following is a short excerpt that was originally supposed to be present in one of my past videos but was ultimately cut. I'd say the chapter that really kick-started my investment in the GFL universe has got to be Continuum Turbulence. The story opens with Sopmod, a doll contracted under the private military company, Griffin and Kruger, waking up battered and bruised on a battlefield, with everyone around her seemingly dead or scrapped. Sopmod is part of the Anti-Rain Team, an elite squad of dolls that carried out important tasks, and had a carefree attitude and almost childlike qualities. The battlefield is still teeming with enemies, and Sopmod is without a capable body for combat. She's awoken by a transmission from M16, one of her companions in the AR team. However, M16 looks different than her usual self, emitting a signal that only Griffin's arch-rival faction, the Sangvis Fairy, would. Has she defected to the enemy team? She explains that Griffin has been betrayed by the military for their own personal agenda, and is ousting Griffin as a terrorist organization. The AR team, unfortunately, was caught in the crossfire. Sopmod pulls her badly damaged body upright and ponders if M16 can still be trusted. But M16 criticizes her former ally for such a black and white perspective on good or bad. She tells Sopmod to repair herself with parts scavenged from fallen Sangvis dolls, and she reluctantly does so, all the while wondering what to do from now on, now that she has no one else to rely on for orders. They move to a nearby safe house and find M4, the leader of the AR team, safe but unconscious. Realizing that Sopmod doesn't have the capabilities to awaken M4, M16 urges her to leave M4 here for now. Picking up the nearby lifeless remains of RO635, Sopmod's closest companion and the one she always took orders from, she sets out to connect RO's core into a power source and into a new body. At the very least, in the midst of all this death and destruction, she may be able to save her friend. Now, this introduction is a lot to take in, but it's a very strong start to the plot. You have an inciting incident that immediately kicks off a sense of urgency. You have the childlike Sopmod that was sheltered by her companions now forced to think independently. Do I trust M16 or not? Do I rescue the allied Griffin dolls or go straight to find a power supply? This side protagonist in the overall GFL universe is now seen in a new light as she's tested at every turn as she carries out an extremely personal goal. All the while slowly unraveling the story into a much bigger plot involving dealing with the military group that betrayed them. This was the moment I realized, okay, they're actually serious about this now. You can see that the writing takes such a stark contrast to most stories in modern gacha games. They just don't make them like this anymore. Over the past couple months, I've been slowly reading through the story events of the first game. I'm still reading through the dual randomness chapter, but one major advantage I found with gacha games focused on story is that their overall runtime for each plotline is long. Very long. For example, a playthrough of the dual randomness chapter on autoplay lasts for 12 hours, and this is without the gameplay portions. The reason why each storyline feels oddly fleshed out is the long runtime, and I know this is likely the same case for similar games like Arknights, which I will play soon. The saddest part, I don't think Exilium even has a chance for the story to reach the same peak as the first game, and this is primarily because of how its monetization model has changed. I've talked about this in a previous video, but this is something I like to call the gacha motive of storytelling. Something I think the majority of players would see eye to eye on is that the primary way on how a gacha game is monetized these days is through its characters. They are marketable products sold to you with all the emotional attachments that come along with them. To sell them, the game would have to keep releasing new characters in a timely manner to fit the live service nature of the game. Gacha games need to release new characters to retain new and existing players, and said characters would have to be involved in the story in one way or another. Because of this difference in approach, every one of Exilium's new dolls have to be marketable and sold to you, and given the tight update schedule, the story content has to be delivered without too much dead air in between patches. This approach can affect how the story is written, primarily how logically the overall storyline flows. For example, do you sometimes feel that new dolls joining the commander in the Elmo kinda feels shoehorned in? As in, it doesn't make too much sense why they will be joining at this particular time. How the first game's story worked is that it wasn't forced to constantly release new dolls, because the gacha system revolved around pulling for costumes and furniture instead. You just made the dolls through construction, where you could reliably get everyone as a free-to-play. The central cast mainly follows 3 different groups: the Anti-Rain Team, Squad 404, and Task Force Defy. You'll usually get some brief cameos from some, lesser important dolls, but from beginning to end, it was about these central groups. You get to see how they grow and overcome challenges, how they change and develop. They're given ample time to mature and bring fresh perspectives to the story. It wasn't bound to the gacha motive of storytelling. In my opinion, this is one of the strongest central casts I've seen in a gacha game. When I returned to Exilium, I was so excited to see what they would look like in 3D. Is Soap Mod okay? Is she alright? I might not be too interested in playing the game now, but I know I'll be returning when Squad Defy makes their appearance. So let's finally talk about Exilium. This time, I will be returning as someone with a good amount of context that has played the first game. Let's see how it measures up to my expectations. I've reached Commander level 60, spent around $15 on the game, and collected a decent bit of roster in the past couple months. First, the good. The overall quality of Exilium is fantastic. I think this is one of the best looking gacha games on the market out right now, and I don't think many would even argue against it. The overall lore also draws in a lot of reference from the original, enough to make you think that they at least have some understanding of staying faithful to the first game. I played through a great portion of the main story up until the end of Chapter 8. Throughout, there were sprinkles of all sorts of references with callbacks to the original. Oh, they used the Elmo as their central base. Like this same Elmo? Wait, that's what Kalina looks like now? Oh, Paraduce is involved. Isn't that a big deal? The first time I went through this, I never really paid much attention, but if you have gone through the same journey as the commander with the first game, you'll immediately start picking up these moments. They hit quite differently depending on your background on the GFL universe. I know you technically don't have to play the first game to enjoy Exilium, I just find that your experience will be enhanced quite a lot if you do. I also noticed some subtle references that made me appreciate Exilium. For example, I was casually, admiring the door mode one day, and all of a sudden, I realized the melody of the background music, and I thought, no way, they actually put that there. What about this tune from the Vampire Survivors minigame? You bet I recognize that. They used the chibis from the first game, which by some accounts could be argued as laziness, but I overall didn't have a problem with that and thought it was a cool throwback. The full sweep feature is a good touch, with quite a lot of freebie events that give stamina and other goodies. Having played the game for a month or so, you do get enough currency to make a decent amount of progress towards the pity for newly released dolls, assuming you do all the activities. I guess we can talk about the daily activities next. The dailies in this game will take a bit longer than your other usual gachas. You can sweep levels to spend stamina fast enough, but there's also platoon-related activities that's honestly kinda hit or miss for some people. The PvP mode where you bully Colfiend over and over, which I honestly just don't have the patience or interest for, but at least you just have to clear once a day. The mode that I did quite find interesting was Boundary Push. There's a meta progression system, and it plays quite differently than your other modes. It puts a different spin on the usual formula, and I thought the real-time strategy puzzle element was intriguing to figure out, one of the additions that I actively did enjoy playing. So the past events tab is not yet implemented as I'm recording this, though I know it will be there soon. Curiously enough, this button has been there at launch. Anyways, you can't go back and view the past events, and GFL 2 does the exact same thing as the first game, where the events account for new story content, except they're not made available permanently. I don't know why this has to be an issue, since most other games with the same content cycle just make the older events available right away. I will say this, I read through the Aphelion campaign story, and it's probably the only time when I felt some kind of resemblance to the way the first game wrote its narrative. You have new information on how the world works, fleshed out NPCs that play fairly big roles and change over time. Plus, you get to see what 404 has been up to. It's not quite on the same level yet, but it gives me an idea on what the game is capable of. So, if I were to give a quick summary of all my critiques with the game, I would say that Exilium follows a lot of tropes of modern gacha games, and I will conclude that the game is just good. It doesn't really do anything innovative, but it's good enough to carry its popularity and grow over time. GFL 2 is one of the more successful gacha launches in recent memory, with its community steadily growing over time, which is a very good indicator of its health. It's very clear that these progression and gacha systems work to draw in newcomers. If it works for everyone else, well hey, no complaints from me. But I will be going over my thoughts on everything. All throughout, I'll be making some direct comparisons to Snowbreak. Now, I'm not being sponsored by Snowbreak to say anything here. I just want to point out some similarities, as these two games are targeting more or less the same player demographic. Overall, I found that the XCOM gameplay loop felt pretty novel at first, and as you collect more dolls to kit out your roster, you'll start noticing some cool synergies you can pull off. Over the past couple months, I pulled Clucky, along with some others. So I thought, well, I guess I can try building a corrosion team just to see what an actual team looks like. I found the leveling system to be fairly straightforward, if not a little grindy. You'll need a lot of these tickets to max out a unit. I mean, in a typical gacha, if you want a unit to perform well endgame, they obviously gotta be level 60 for both character and weapons, invested in some keys, and rolled attachments with their set bonuses. The attachment system doesn't seem that stingy, where you can just select the set you want. There's still some bits of RNG involved, though you can reliably get some high rolls on these substats. It's fine, admittedly. For new players, the max level cap is tied to account level, so you have to wait until level 60 before you can max out the dolls. I found that sometimes the gameplay felt a little samey, but maybe it's just due to how I haven't collected enough dolls to see enough variation. Some of the later challenges, like the bosses, mainly felt like a numbers game where you're just trying to exploit phase weaknesses. But I mean, which gacha game doesn't do that? The gacha system itself is also pretty average. They tend to give a decent amount of currency, so you can reliably score a lot of new dolls. The rates, though, not too good. It's the classic Hoyoverse formula with a 50% rate up and second rate up guarantee. The weapon banner works exactly the same way. I'm just gonna be honest, I don't like this weapon system. Because the standard banner has a 50% rate up on the weapon you want, you won't have a steady source of the standard 5 stars, and 4 stars generally are placeholders unless you can get their limit break high enough. I'm typically someone that saves for one copy of whatever new SSR is available, then just don't bother with the weapon banner at all. The 4-star department is also lacking. Aside from Lada, released at launch, there's no new 4 stars, not even in the CN servers. Now, if you have no problems with this in other games, then I don't see how you will have a problem here. I just have a lot of respect for games that do make lower rarities more accessible, or ones that add that limited characters to the standard pool. Snowbreak has a 100% banner type, so losing the coin flip isn't an issue. I do know that the gacha currency is given out a bit less frequently over there, so you're likely going to score less new operatives overall, but it just feels fair that you always get to work towards what you want. Instead of a weapon skin in the event shop, Snowbreak gives a 4-star welfare weapon instead. It's tailor-made to be compatible with the current rate-up operative, and while it's obviously worse than the 5-star, it's often usable, and the game feels like you can just forget about the weapon banner entirely if you wanted to. Again, just like progression, the gacha is just fine. I also want to talk about the dupe system. This is more or less a discussion on dupes in the entirety of gacha games in general, but since GFL 2 fits the bill of what I want to talk about, guess I'll go over it here. The dupe system is also copied from MiHoYo's antics, of additional segments with weapons going up to 5. Currently, there is no way to farm for dupe levels for limited characters outside of the gacha. By itself, again, if you're okay with this kind of system in other gachas, then it's not really a problem here. Over the past couple months, after having played a lot of other gachas, I do want to bring out another perspective. So the more gacha games I played, I noticed that there's usually 2 types of dupe systems. The first is the same as games like GFL 2 or any of the Hoyo games, where you get new passives and abilities. Or games such as Nikke, Arknights, Epic 7, or dare I say it, Etheria Restart. These games give stat boosts for pulling dupes only. Now, let's assume that you're a free-to-play or low spender, and you don't care about pulling signature weapons or dupes, meaning that all this stuff doesn't even apply to you. If you were given a choice of which type of dupe system to have in a game, which one would you prefer? For me, stat-based all the way. When you pull a character, it feels like you have access to their whole kit. There's no hidden passives or upgrades locked behind more copies. You can wail for more stats, sure, but just for me, this type of system feels more fair. When I saw that a whale Clukai can use her overpowered AoE ult twice without needing to kill anything, or how it literally just widens the AoE by 2 tiles, I was like, damn, well my Clucky can't do that. To be fair, this is a gacha game, and of course, if you pull for weapons or dupes, you will become more powerful. This is usually more apparent in turn-based games because if you do the exact same thing every run of a level and you notice that you can suddenly kill an enemy in one action instead of two, then you know that extra dupe is what got you that win. It's easier to see the benefits of vertically investing in character dupes or weapons. In all honesty, this is likely just a personal gripe of mine. Maybe you don't care about this kind of dupe system at all. Also, Snowbreak lets you farm the shards needed to get dupes, so there's that as well. I don't think it's a stretch to say that GFL 2 has copied a lot of systems and design choices from MiHoYo. From the gacha rates, to the dupe system, to the weapons, to the standard banner. Now, if you've been playing MiHoYo games previously and don't mind how these systems work, no problem. I don't think they're inherently bad, I'm just saying that it doesn't make the game stand out or particularly generous. The monetization is just average. Lastly, to give a callback to the reason most players are playing this game, I mean, look, if you're here to goon, say no more. I'm afraid Snowbreak offers some stiff competition there too. Take a look at this interactive skin. Now, there's plenty of fanservice gacha games out there, and it's not really my place to tell you which ones does it better. Everyone's got different tastes after all. The main reason I returned to Exilium is that I became attached to the first game and its universe. The first girl's Frontline, despite its jank, was really something special, and I don't think the same magic is captured in Exilium. For me, it's just a quality gacha game, and that's how I'll probably see it. I know when Task Force Defy returns, I'll be returning for more of the main story. However, I think GFL 2 is a good example of how as long as you're able to use whatever formula works in the market, create a quality product, people will play it. I see Exilium as a game that I'll drop in every now and then for certain story events, and I certainly don't take issue with people enjoying the game. If I was given the opportunity for a sponsor, hey, I'd probably take it. For me, the story of GFL ended with the first game. I don't know what this is supposed to be. Until it can show me they can reach the same emotional peak as the first game, it's a title I'd enjoy casually playing while watching a YouTube video on my second monitor. And that's why for me, GFL 2 Exilium is a great game and an average sequel. Thank you for tuning into this follow-up review, and let me know what you think. If you enjoy catching more gacha-related content like this, you know what to do. As always, thank you for watching, spend moderately, and have fun out there.